What is going on, Chess YouTube? In today's video, we're having a look at Gukesh D's latest and greatest classical chess game. This one is against Pentala Harikrishna, a very strong Indian grandmaster at the 2025 Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Let's dive right in. All right, in the game, Gukesh opens 1e4 best by test, and here Pentala Harikrishna, very interestingly, instead of going e5, c5, or any of the main lines, he does go 1 e6, the French defense, a very interesting choice for this game. Then we have d4, d5, and now which line of the French will Gukesh go for? Will he go knight c3, knight d2, or e5? Well, it turns out in this game, he is going to go e5, the advanced variation, and this is an oldie but goodie. It may be the simplest way to meet the French. You just move your pawn one square forward. However, a lot of super strong grandmasters have been playing this way lately as white. All right, now both sides follow the absolute main line in this position. Black goes c5, then c3, knight c6, knight f3, and now, of course, black has a few different ideas, including bishop d7, queen b6, and knight g to e7. But in this game, Pentala plays the absolute main line as black. That is just bishop d7, taking control of this diagonal here and stopping future bishop b5 check ideas, which can be very, very tricky. All right, now both sides continue to follow the absolute main line of the advanced variation. We have bishop e2, knight gd7, short castles, and here, finally, in this position, black is supposed to go knight g6 here. However, in the game, he goes c takes d4, and this turns out to be maybe the first inaccuracy of the game. Now, the problem with this move is after c takes d4, here white can bring his knight on b1 to the very good c3 square, and before those pawns on c5 and c3 are traded off, that square is not available. White normally has to go either knight d2 or knight a3, then c2, and so on. But instead, in the game, after c takes, here white has c3 available for the knight, and that will give white very good chances of fighting for an opening advantage. All right, black continues, knight f5, putting a lot of pressure on that pawn on e4. Very good stuff. And here, Gukesh, he makes very good use of black's inaccuracy, c takes d4, and he just goes knight to c3. By far the best square for the knight so far on the board. All right, now, how will black proceed in this position? The strongest move here is just rook to c8, developing the rook to the very good open c-file. Instead, in the game, a6 was played, and the idea behind this, you are gaining control of that b5 square, stopping knight b5 and bishop b5 ideas from white. However, this turns out to be a little bit slow, and already on move 10, according to the engine Stockfish, white here has the option of going for the immediate pawn break on the king side with the move g4. That would be apparently the strongest move. Gukesh, I think he knows that, but he's playing it safe. Before doing that, he just slides his king over, king to h1, a very sly move by the very sly Indian super grandmaster and world champion Gukesh D. All right, now here, Pentala Harikrishna, rook to c8 is the move. Then we have rook b1, a very interesting prophylactic move. Now, this turns out to be the strongest move according to the engine. And what is the idea? Well, black sooner or later is going to have to go queen b6, putting pressure on d4 as well as b2. And with this move, rook b1, you defend b2 in advance, making it that much easier to defend d4 later in the game. Now here, sure enough, Pentala, he does go queen b6, sliding the queen out, again attacking b2 as well as d4. And now here, black has 1, 2, 3 pieces all piling up on that weak d pawn. Meanwhile, white only has 1, 2 pieces defending. Therefore, white is going to have to do something about that pawn immediately if he does not want to fall behind in material. All right, now here, Gukesh, in this position, he busts out an absolutely insane move that sets the board on fire. This move is a shocker. If you like puzzles, pause the video right now and try to find the shocking move played by Gukesh right here in this position. And while you're at it, go and smash that YouTube like button for more videos just like this one. All right, here, Gukesh, the world champion, he busts out a move that shows he is not afraid of anyone. He's playing for a win as white in this game, and that's right, he busts out Gary the G-pawn. Boom, g4 on the board, knocking back that knight on f5. And what is black going to do here? The problem of taking on d4 is after, say, knight takes, then white is going to have the option of something like bishop e3, trying to pin that knight on d4 to the queen on on b6. Now, the main line here is absolutely insane. In the game, black did go knight f to e7, retreating the knight, but this turns out to be quite a bit weaker than the alternatives, as you can see with the eval bar starting to really shoot up in Gukesh D's favor real fast. I want to show you the main line according to the engine right here. It goes knight c takes d4, then g takes f5, then you take on f3, then you take on e6. The whole line goes on and on and on. It is just a nightmare. Instead, knight f to e7 played in the game, and now here Gukesh, he finally just defends that pawn on d4. Bishop e3 is the move, and again, we're seeing the benefit of that move, rook b1. With b2 covered, the bishop can slide off the c1 square without giving up that b2 pawn to the queen. And here, Gukesh, he has an outstanding position. This pawn on g4, believe it or not, is not that weak. White may want to go, for example, knight g5, f4, f5, and so on, maybe even f6, getting a vicious kingside attack going. With that in mind, Pentala Harikrishna, the Indian super grandmaster, he's got to find some way to slow down the plan of Gukesh right away, and he finds a brilliant idea. Again, if you like puzzles, pause the video and find the solution right here for black to get counterplay. Well, he busts out my favorite move as black. That is the move h5. Prince Harry, the h-pawn, has entered the game, and look at this. Despite being stuck on h8, this rook now comes to life. If white takes on h5, the rook takes, and suddenly black's going to have counterplay along the h-file against the very vulnerable white king, and black may even think about, say, artificially castling his king on the queen side with king d8, c7, and then b8. Wow, what an idea. All right, here, white. What should white be doing? Well, you can take on h5, you can go g5, or you can go, say, knight g5, immediately going for the attack. In the game, Gukesh plays very, very solid. He just goes g5, keeping the g-file closed, but the problem with this move, that g-pawn, Gary the g-pawn, will never, ever again control that f5 square. That means it's going to be that much harder to achieve the very important f4, f5 break, and beyond that, of course, that knight on e7 that was dried back by that knight a move prior is now going to be jumping out to the f5 square, again, pressuring d4, pressuring e3, and so on, and black's going to have a lot of counterplay. All right, here. Turns out black's best options in this position do not include knight to f5. That move would be premature. Instead, g6 or even knight to a5 are a little bit preferable if I can draw arrows correctly, knight to a5. But instead, Pentala, he gets a little bit trigger happy, and he does go knight to f5. Now, what could be more natural than this move here? Knight f5, you jump out with your knight, you pressure d4 with 1, 2, 3 pieces. I mean, what could be more natural than that? Well, it turns out this move is a massive mistake because Gukesh finds the one idea he needs to blow open the kingside. That is the move g6. Gary the g-pawn marching all the way down the board. Now, no matter what black does, the kingside will be blown open. For example, if you take on g6, then Gukesh rook g1, dialing up on g6. Instead, in the game, f6 chosen by Pentala Harikrishna, and now we have e takes, then g takes, and once again, Gary the g-pawn stays alive. It's on g6. It covers h7 and, very importantly, f7, and white is going to have a massive attack with the kingside being completely blown wide open. All right, now here, Gukesh continues bishop d3, piling up pressure on that weak knight on f5, threatening bishop takes f5, then after, say, e takes, I don't know, rook e1, piling up pressure on the open e-file. Things could get very dangerous very fast for black. All right, in the game, Pentala, knight c to e7, demonstrating his sagacity, covering the knight on f5, stopping bishop takes f5 ideas, as then the other knight recaptures, and again, black would win the bishop pair and be doing just fine. So with that in mind here, Gukesh, he regroups, he finds a different idea, rook to g1, sliding the rook over, pressuring that pawn on g6, his own pawn, and threatening ideas like g7 later in the game. Yes, for now, g7 is covered by the knight and the bishop. However, that is a very dangerous threat that black will have to be mindful of later in this game. All right, here, Pentala, bishop g7 is the move for the Indian grandmaster, but then the other Indian grandmaster, knight to a4, pressuring the weak queen on b6. Where's he going to go? Queen d6 chosen in the game. And now here, according to Stockfish, the right way forward is knight c5, jumping in with the knight and pressuring that pawn on on b7. But instead, in the game, Gukesh b4, a very solid move. The idea being you want to go knight c5 with that knight being supported by the very far advanced b pawn. Not a bad idea at all. All right, now here, Pentala b6 is the move, guarding c5, and again, showing why white had to go knight c5 immediately. Now that is not possible, as you would lose the knight. And here, Gukesh, he gets a little bit impatient. It turns out here, he should be playing maybe a waiting move, perhaps bishop d2, perhaps a3, both those moves guarding b4, but instead here, he actually goes b5. The point being, he wants to blow open a second line of attack. The king side is blown wide open. Now it's time to blow open the queen side, but again, this move is a little bit premature, as you can see by the eval bar on the left, already showing black has maybe a little bit of an advantage here, and he does start to seize the initiative. All right, we've a takes b5, then bishop takes, rook takes, and then finally here, black takes on e3, knight takes e3, then f takes e3. All right, let's slow down and do inventory. It turns out here, both sides still, believe it or not, have even material. They both have 1, 2 minor pieces, 1, 2 rooks, a piece, and the queen, and they also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns apiece. So overall, even material, but black's king is a little bit less safe, and that may give white good chances here. All right, rook c6 chosen in the game, defending that pawn on b6. Now we have queen b3 sliding out with the queen, pressuring b6 with the queen, the rook, and the knight. All right, now castles is the move, giving up that pawn on b6. Pentala, he had no choice really. All right, knight takes b6, jumping in, winning the free pawn, and now here Pentala trying to get counterplay. Bishop h6 is the move, a very creative move, pressuring e3 with the bishop, but it turns out this move is not that dangerous. White just goes knight to a4, regrouping his knight, and in case you were curious, here knight h4 may have been a little bit stronger. Instead, knight a4 chosen in the game. Not a terrible move, but not nearly as strong as knight to h4. All right, now here, knight f5 chosen in the game by Pentala, then rook c5, offering a trade of rooks, and here the Indian Grandmaster obliges rook takes c5, and the other Indian Grandmaster takes back knight takes c5. And now here, in this position, obviously, white is going to be losing a pawn on e3, but the big question is, which piece do you want to take on e3 with, the knight or the bishop? Well, once again, it's a good time for a puzzle. If you like puzzles, pause the video and try to figure out which is the right piece for the Indian Grandmaster to capture with. All right, it turns out here, the right piece is going to be the bishop. Bishop takes e3, taking with the bishop, pressuring the rook on g1, the pawn on d4, and the knight stays on the very good f5 square. Instead, in the game, knight takes e3 chosen, and this move is almost immediately losing on the spot. Okay, what is the problem with this move? It's very, very simple. White here, he just swings in with the queen to b7, threatening checkmate in one move. The audacity of the Indian superstar. All right, here black, he tries to defend. Bishop g7, blockading the queen's access to that. Not blockading. Is it blockading? Blocking the queen's access to that square on h7. But here, Gukesh, he is not done. Rook to e1, pressures that knight on the e3 square. Where is that knight going to go? It's going back to the f5 square. And here, it sort of looks like black is defending so far. But of course, that pawn on e6 is vulnerable. It is going to be lost. And here we have knight takes e6, jumping in with the knight. And once again, white has a lot of threats in this position. No, it is not checkmate in one move, as the knight on f5 does guard that g7 square, but overall, white still has a dominating position. All right, here Pentala, he tries to get counterplay. He goes rook to b8. Very interesting. The rook may be going to be active on the b file, and of course, it is defended by the queen on d6. However, the problem with this move right here is white can just slide the queen over to the f7 square as chosen in the game. Queen f7 check, hitting the king on g8. Where's the king going to go? King to h8 chosen in the game. And here, Gukesh says, I have had enough of this bishop on g7 blocking my queen h7 idea. He finally trades it off. Knight takes g7, then knight takes is forced. And here, the very strong move by Gukesh, rook to e7, flying in with the rook, once again, threatening king checkmate on g7 in one move. The audacity of Gukesh. All right, now here Pentala, he has to defend. There are only maybe a couple of moves here that do defend. For example, queen takes e7 is one move, but you don't want to give up the queen. Instead, rook g8 chosen in the game, defending with the rook. But of course here, Gukesh, he is not done. He slides the rook back a square, rook d7, pressuring the queen, pressuring the pawn on d5 behind it. That pawn is being attacked twice, indirectly by the rook, directly by the queen. That pawn is going to be a goner. Where's black going to go? In the game, queen b6 chosen, trying to stay active, pressuring d4, pressuring b1 square, which would deliver a check on the king on h1. But here Gukesh, he calculates everything out. He just goes rook takes d5, and now, believe it or not, in certain lines, the threat is going to be rook h5 checkmate. Things are getting very, very dangerous. All right, Pentala, he tries to fight back, queen to b1, hitting the king on h1, and here begins one of the greatest king marches in the history of chess. And no, I'm not exaggerating, maybe a little bit, but this king march is pretty epic stuff. All right, king g2 chosen by Gukesh. Move number one with the king, then f5, gaining space on the king side. The knight and the queen now control that f5 square. All right, now rook c5 chosen, perhaps intending, I don't know, rook c7 ideas. Now queen b2 hits the king again, and now king to f1. That's move number two with the king. Now queen a1 hits the king again, king to f2, move number three. Then we have queen b2, king g3, move number four. Now h4. Prince Harry, the h-pawn, has once again entered the game. And will white take the bait and take on f4? No, he will not. Gukesh, staying cool, calm, and collected. He goes king to f4. Move number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the king. Now we have queen to b8. This time the king stays stationary. We have rook to e5, blocking the check. Now queen d6. And now here, in this final position in the game, Gukesh finds one last move to seal the deal, to win the game. And that's right, it is going to be king move number 7. King to g5. The king starting on h1, traveling all the way up, zigzagging up all the way to the g5 square. And in this position, Pentala Harikrishna, he simply resigns on the spot to Gukesh D. There is simply no untangling this position as black. I mean, white can take on h4 with the king. He can do whatever he wants in this position. White's up material. He's got the better king and so on. And here Pentala, he simply resigns to Gukesh, the current reigning chess world champion. Wow, what a game between Gukesh and Pentala Harikrishna in round number, I believe, 6? Round number 6 of the 2025 Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Wow, what a game. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, smash that like button for me and comment down below what you thought of this game, and especially the crazy king march. Let's see if I can still have it. Yeah, the king march going all the way there and then up to g5, and especially out of the opening, the insane 12 g4, knocking back the knight, kickstarting just insane complications in this game after knight f to e7, bishop e3, and then h5, the alpha 0 pawn entering the game. This game was wild, and it's so good to see Gukesh, you know, despite being world champion, he is going all out in all of his games. He's not playing these, you know, fast, easy draws. This guy is bringing it. And yeah, very, very fantastic stuff by Gukesh. I think Gukesh winning the world championship match has been very good for the chess scene overall. So good stuff. All right, if you want to see more Gukesh action, you can check out this video right here where I cover yet another one of Gukesh's latest and greatest games from the 2025 Tata Steel Chess Tournament. If you want to see more Gukesh action, check that video out, and I'll see you in the next video.